Junction with the SSA, and it's been a terrific night. We just saw in a game that was streamed, the Shooters pull a little bit of a minor upset as they defeated the defending SSA Gold Rush Gaming major national champions, High Y, 6-3. So that was a slight upset. I wouldn't say a big upset. Watching the team out in Forest Park, when the Shooters got their whole club out, they're pretty tough, and they pulled a little bit of an upset. And so they've already done the toss, and the Shooters are the visitors. So we'll run through some rules as I jockey around here with my Zoom. I'm sure you don't want to be looking at the carpet all day. This thing is a little sensitive. So there we go. So this is Chicago 16-inch style softball. 60-foot bases. You can lead off. You can't steal. 38 from the pitching rubber to the point at home. 6-12 on the arc. We're playing 1-1 tonight. Because it's no glove, the pitcher gets a drag step, one step left, right, or back. He can have two fakes or hesitation. Third arm action has to be to deliver the ball home. A throw or fake to a base is considered a fake or hesitation. And this is a 16-inch clincher. It's not a mush ball. And we got guys that can hit this thing 300 feet. And speaking of 300 feet, that's what the fencing is here. Anything that bounces over, through, or under will be a ground rule triple. And we also use heavy bats. They can weigh up to 38 ounces, no longer than 34 inches, 2 1/4 on the barrel. So this is a 45 team that is very storied in the history of the game. They've done everything, won everything that you can do in the game. Long tradition of just excellence. And their trademark is they'll play great defense and they will hit. So it's a very well-rounded team. Meanwhile, you got Ray Zarnick over here, leader of the Shooters. Shooters, the last few years, Ray's had young teams, but this year he's got a few more veterans, a couple of former Brick guys. And they're very tough. He brought back John Ryan. So the leadoff man is going to be Justin Bringle. He'll be followed by Spencer Stanek and then Keenan Connolly. And Keenan, a terrific player. And he slaps it the other way. Nate Mercado, tough little skip hop, but he stays with it. And that was a tough play, folks. That second hop flattened out on him. Nate was in good position, dropped his hands, and made the catch. So that's how the game begins, and that is going to bring up Spencer Stanek playing center field today. And I know in having conversations with Ray Zarnick, he likes his group. He's got a nice mix now. He's got some younger players, and he's got some more veteran types. And I think they're going to have a good year. And he drives it to the gap. P.J. Raines can't get there. And Bringle's going to end up with a stand-up double. And again, these are big outfields because of the 300-foot fencing. You can see the foul territory, and you can see how the outfield kind of slopes down, especially down the left field line here. First time I streamed this weekend, but we've been talking about it on early broadcasts. Here's Keenan. That's how the park drains. And Keenan up the middle. Villarreal picks it up, a little bobble, but he recovers. For out number 2, Bringle heads into second. So if you're an outfield, this is a big outfield. And there are some slopes to it. So it becomes very tricky, especially when you're running toward the left field line because you're running downhill, but the ball will stay up. And that'll bring up Eddie Villanueva, and caught by Anthony Sanchez. So Eddie went the other way. Eddie Valunas went the other way. It just hung up there just enough for Anthony Sanchez to cover the ground. And, of course, Anthony Sanchez has been a co-MVP at an SSA Men's Major National Championship tournament few years ago, he also got what turned out to be the game-winning hit in the no glove out at Forest Park. So, of course, the manager and pitcher, Israel Sanchez, that's his son. So another legacy kid. We talk about that all the time. And there's a few players on the 45's that I got a chance to coach when I was with Brick, including Eddie, who just made the last out, and Elliot Pisarczyk. And when I was with Flashback, I got a chance to manage Ian Langston, also on the shooter team. So 1-1 count today. And here's Anthony Sanchez leading off the bottom of the first. A little different angle. I know George Bliss likes to get deep, but I try not to be interjected into the game because hitters don't need to hear your comments, nor do the on-deck batters. I try to not be in the middle of the fray, as they say. So here's Anthony, and he drills one, but right at the short center, Ian Langston. And Ian didn't play for a few years. I ran into him at Forest Park, and he's like, they dragged me back in. And Ian was always a slick short center, played with the Roadrunners. And a little bit of trivia I'll get to in a second. Here's P.J. Raines. And PJ, little ground ball over to Ian, little catch and flip for out number 2. So Ian, when he was with the Roadrunners, and I was managing Flashback, my first year we're in the no glove and we're in the championship game, and we came out of the losers bracket, and in the if game, so here's Nate Mercado, and of course Nate, one of the best shortstops in the game. Terrific two-way player. So 2 outs, nobody on. And he tries to go deep, and the left fielder took a shallow route, and the ball went over his head. And now he drops it, and he drops it a second time. And Nate Mercado, a 2-out solo home run, and the 45's grabbed the first lead of the day. And that was an example. The left fielder started to run back a little bit, and he was going downhill, and that ball was over his head. And when I say a flat route, he needed to go and run toward the fence and back, and he didn't really do that. And that's what I mean when you come out here, it's a tough outfield to play. Brings up Joe Yaris. So I'll get to my Ian Langston story at the end of this half inning, folks. I didn't forget about it. So here's Joe Yaris. Joe playing short center, his normal spot. And, you know, when you play a team like the 45's, you have to be very careful because they do tend to take advantage of mistakes. And you have a smaller margin of error. So still early, though. Bottom of the first. And that was Robbie Bosco out there. And there's a swing, and Yaris dumps a single into right field. So with 2 outs here, home run and a single, and brings up Chris Lentine. Of course, Chris was the other half of that co-MVP when Anthony got it up in Wheeling at the SSA Major National Championship Tournament. And, of course, you all know John Ryan, pitching for the Shooters, played on OBI and Feta, was here with the Shooters, left to start OBI last year and realized managing wasn't easy and came back home to the Shooters. And Chris Lentine hits it off the end of the bat, base hit. Yaris will get to third. 3 straight 2-out hits here. And I like what Ian did there. Chris Lentine was jockeying, trying to see if he could draw a throw. but Ian just kind of stared him down, had his head on a swivel, and waited until the umpire called time. And here's Billy Smith. Of course, Billy was one of the original OBI kids when they exploded onto the scene out of Kennedy Park. His brother Alex hasn't really played in the what I call structured softball in a few years, and there's a high fly ball that'll be out of play. But if Alex was to come back right now, he'd probably still be a top 5 player in the game. So 45's early 1-0 lead, threatening to get more here. All of this started again with 2 outs. Thanks, John. I wish I could slim it up just a little bit, but I'm limited in the graphics. Facebook, right around January, wouldn't let anybody go live in landscape mode. So I got to run this through a third-party software. And Billy Smith dumps a hit. Second run scores. Lentine running on the swing will get to third. And sometimes that's what happens when you play a team like the 45's. If you give them an opening and you give them an inch, they might take a mile. And here's Jeff Mastari, Frank Mastari's son. Very good young-looking player, and he gets underneath that. Center fielder is there. But in the inning, with 2 outs, the 45's find a way to generate a couple of runs. We'll head to the second, 2-0, 45's. So getting back to Ian Langston, a little trivia. We're in the if game, bottom of the 7th. Flashback tied with the Roadrunners, 1 out. And Ian was coming up to bat, and they pinch hit for him, and the pinch hitter ended up popping up for out number 2, and then Davey Hart came up and hit a 2-hopper to Johnny Westermeyer, and he stepped on the bag. And then in the top of the 8th, we scored 2 or 3 runs, and we ended up winning the ball game. So leading off is Elliot Pisarcik. He goes up top, didn't quite barrel it up, and Chuck Regaldo made the easy catch. Well, I think Feta stood for something else. It really wasn't toward the cheese. So I can't really go into what it stood for because the first word might not be appropriate, I think, for some of the younger kids. So 2 up, 2 down as Pat Martin grounds out, and it'll bring up Mike Giangran. And he smokes one. Adam Haas knocked it down, kind of kicked it toward the bag, and Israel Sanchez hustling over, all 75 years young. No, he's not that old, folks. But Israel doing what he's supposed to do, hustling over, and Adam recovered, and they got the out. So we head to the bottom, or the top of the second, I should say, 2-0 45's. So that's your Ian Langston. He was the guy that got pinch hit for at a no glove. And, you know, we had him a year or 2 after that when I went to Flashback. He came over. And, you know, Ian was a kid that he knows how to play the game. And he does the right thing. And I'm convinced had John Lehman not hit for him there that they would have won the no glove that year. So here's Adam Haas, a ground ball to second. Pick up and throw. Good job by the second baseman over there keeping the skirt down, Justin Bringle. And he makes the play. So again, make plans to come out tomorrow. It's going to be an absolutely stunning day. winter bracket games will start at 4:30, but we'll be kicking off at 9 a.m. And again, they're going to have food all day, adult beverages, kid beverages, candy, popcorn, Italian beef, you name it. So make plans to come out. Just bring some sunscreen and maybe a portable battery-operated fan. You'll be just fine. So here's Danny Villaria now. With one out here in the top of the second. And Danny swings, center fielder, it drops in for a base hit. And again, the 45's will dink and dunk you. And then when you start cheating them, they'll start bringing out the long ball. So a lot of times you just got to kind of live with some of these hits in front of you. And it brings up Israel Sanchez with Chuck Regaldo on deck.
Come on, coach! Back.
And the 45's are a little deeper in their outfield now. They don't have to put Billy Smith out there. And there's a long play and can't make the catch. Oh, umpire got screened there. He couldn't see it. Eddie had it. And then he rolled over a little bit, and it did look like he dropped it. And that's a tough play for an umpire. You can't really see it because the way Eddie approached it, it looked like he had it. And when he rolled over on it, of course, Eddie played football. He was a tight end at U of I. So here's Chuck Regaldo. We'll keep an eye on it and see if that play factors in anywhere. And I'm glad, I talked a lot with Chuck last year. He kept cramping up, and he pulled a calf in a tournament, and 45's were not very deep in their outfield. And Chuck puts a charge into it, but Johnny on the spot is the right fielder, got a great jump on it. Pat Martin and the 45's, after a base hit, can't do anything. We'll head now to the top of the third, 2-0, 45's. So I was trying to explain to Chuck that he was maybe the most important guy on the team, because in a couple of tournaments when he got hurt, they ended up putting this guy, Adam Haas, in the outfield. And Adam is a gamer, but he's not really an outfielder per se. And their outfield play really would deteriorate, and they would go from cruising along to struggling. So now they picked up P.J. Raines, and there's a ground ball by Jake McTeague, and that's back to Izzy, and he'll make that play. And now, should something happen, you can't put Billy Smith out there, who's still a very solid, above-average right fielder. But Billy's had leg issues, and you really don't want to stress him because he's such a dynamic offensive player that you want him in your lineup. And Ian Langston, a little chop, and Mercado makes the play for out number 2. So that's going to bring up the pitcher, John Ryan. And John was pretty happy. He was telling me about his 2 hits in the first game. And I noticed JR is much more relaxed this year than when he was running OBI last year. And he hits a ground ball to Yaris, and they go 1-2-3. So we're going to head to the bottom of the third. Still 2-0. So the games tonight have been a lot closer. I don't know what the final of the Pharaohs Demon game was, but they were going back and forth. I believe the Demons held on there. They were leading 14-10, and the Pharaohs were down early, and they fought back, and I believe they took a 10-9 lead. And then the Demons came right back and scored a couple of runs. So we've had some back and forth and some good games today. So the 45's are back at the top of their lineup with Anthony Sanchez, Pete Raines, or PJ Raines, and then Nate Mercado. Again, we are live from Mayfair Park in Westchester, Illinois. Thanks for tuning in. And there's a ground ball. And John Ryan's a pretty good pitcher, and he hits that hard. Little problem, and Anthony, a left-handed hitter who runs good. Once that ball hit the chest and the ground, there was really no chance for the second baseman, Justin Bringle, to make that play. So that brings up PJ Raines. Interesting thing is his dad, Pete Raines, is one of the guys on the roster of the 45, so a couple of father and sons here. And PJ walks the dog down the right field line. Ball's going to roll on that slope. Sanchez scores. Raines a stand-up triple. PJ Raines stroked that ball beautifully down the right field line. And the 45s push out to 3-0. And I said on a couple earlier broadcasts that of all of the big, so-called name major teams, I think the 45s have been playing the best coming in. And we're in the third inning. They've got 3 up already and nobody out in the fourth run standing 60 feet away. And he tried to just sweep that down the right field line right to Eddie Valunas, and he makes the catch. So that ball got a little bit deep and a little bit, he let it go fall a little bit too close to the ground there, and he couldn't generate. Line drive knocked down by the third baseman, long throw in time. That's a nice play. PJ Raines really couldn't go anywhere, but the third baseman, Mike Giangrand, he was very calm on that play. So 2 outs now. Runner on third. And there's a base hit. 4th run scores. Some clutch 2-out hitting from Chris Lentine. And again, we had the 45s during the week when they played Meatball City. And they have had a propensity this year to score runs with 2 outs. I believe there's 2 outs. Scoreboard says 1, but we had the flip shot and the line drive, so it's 2. And Billy Smith underneath that, and that's going to be way out of play. First of all, Pops, you guys are talking about beef, Italian beef, which is good here. Amalia wants to know if they're selling meatball sandwiches. We are in the bottom of the third here. 4-0 45s. 2 outs, runner on first. As I got Izzy hugging this line on me. And there's a long one right at the center fielder, and he makes the catch. Kind of bobbled it, made the Bascom catch. We head to the top of the fourth, 4-0. So the 45s taking advantage, some clutch hitting. They lead the game, and if you're the shooters here, you kind of need to get yourself untracked a little bit. Well, now the scoreboard says the 5th inning. I don't think that's right. So leading off is the left fielder, Robbie Bosco. And he slashes one the other way, but Anthony Sanchez read it all the way. And about 6 feet on the carpet, he makes the catch. Nice recovery, Sonny, for Pops there. And back to the top of the lineup with Justin Bringle. And he slaps it down the line fair. He got it past Mastari. Sanchez been everywhere out there. Got on it in a hurry, kept it to a single. Yeah, not Tito's. So I'm not sure who their main sponsor is here. Brings up Spencer Stanek. You know, that's a product when the economy gets bad. You never know when a company may want to separate from you, which is a tough thing to do. And my guess is that they didn't have a written agreement. But I don't know, and it's not my business. So there's a walk, and all of a sudden now, with one out, a couple of base runners for a very dangerous Keenan Connolly. And it's funny because Keenan has played so much softball. And when he busted onto the scene, he was an 18, 19-year-old kid. And he delivers base hit. And that's going to score a run. Chuck had a problem. And that's going to allow Stanek to get to third. First run of the ball game for the Shooters. As they break the seal and make this a 4-1 game here in the fourth. So Keenan Connolly comes through, and it brings up Eddie Valunas. He takes a pitch deep. It's such a calm night today that. So 31, home plate jumping around on Izzy a little bit. And Valunas slaps a hit. Second run scores. Keenan will stop at second. So the Shooters, after being dormant the first couple of innings, have suddenly come out here in the fourth, and they're swinging it much better. And it brings up Elliot Pisarcik, and Elliot's a dangerous guy too. He swings one of the heaviest bats in softball, and there's a little flare, and it's going to be just foul. Not by much. That ball was maybe a foot foul there.
6 feet foul.
And they're all making jokes about how foul it was, but it doesn't matter whether it's an inch or 6 feet, it's still a foul ball. And they did a good job yesterday. It was so wet they couldn't paint the foul lines. And Elliott, a little overhand swing, and Chuck isn't going to get there. Keenan takes the big turn, but he stops. A little bloop single, and the bases are loaded. Still only one out there. Looked like Chuck might have slipped a little bit. And we're checking him out. He laid out kind of funny. He was kind of shaking his, rubbing his elbow. And there's a ground ball to Villarreal over to Mercado. They can't get the double play. They throw behind. But Eddie gets back to third with a long stretch. And that's one of the advantages of being 6'5". That's Gio over there. I don't have the wingspan to get back. So that's 3 runs in here for. So Pat Martin gets on, and here's Mike Giangrand. Israel will take care of that play, but nice inning in the top of the fourth as the Shooters push 3 across, and they tighten up the game at 4-3. So when Eddie gets home, his wife's going to know he played. He's hit the ground twice. He thinks he's back at U of I playing football. So Shooters And you know, John Ryan on the mound is an interesting guy. He's got one of the better knuckleballs. But most of these knuckleball guys, they want it to be a little breezy, a little windy. On a day like today, they don't get quite as much movement. So, and yes, you can throw a knuckleball with a 16-inch. So here's Jeff Mastari, then Adam Haas and Danny Villarria here. Scheduled hitters. And the 45 certainly have more depth this year with Sammy Bertucci over there. And Jeff goes big. High fly ball, long run. He won't get to it. Pounded that into left center. They're going to send him. He's going to have himself a solo home run. So Jeff Mastari brought out the whooping stick, got a flat low pitch, and just golfed it into left center field. Valiant effort there by the left fielder, Robbie Bosco, but that ball was hit right into the gap, and he hit it about 265. So that'll bring up Adam Haas 5-3. So they get one of those three back. And Adam goes the other way, and Keenan Connolly can't make the catch. Haas is going to try to stretch it, and he'll make it. And that's an example, kids, that you got to run hard out of the box. Keenan Connolly had a beat on it, but he had to leave his feet to try to make the catch. The ball rolled into short left field, and Adam, because he was running hard, makes it into second. So 45's here. First hitter homered, second hitter doubled, and that brings up Danny Villarria. Well, that's funny you say that, John, because and Villarria slashes the ball fair right over the bag. Haas will score. Good job by Bosco keeping Villarria to a single. But with nobody out, the 45's have put up a deuce here.
Where you go, Danny?
So Elliott is going to jump out and try to slow things down here. And it brings up Israel Sanchez. And, you know, the great advantage the 45's do have is they can start innings anywhere in their lineup. And Israel goes the other way. Keenan got a hand on it as he just guided it between the third baseman and the shortstop, Keenan Connolly there. Beautifully placed ball. It brings up Chuck Regaldo, so the bottom portion of the 45 lineup pitching in here. And John, I was about to say your comment about Eggs' knuckleball was the first year. And there's a slash to Keenan over to Ian, and they roll the double play there. Villarria goes to third. The SSA did a Exarnic tournament. It wasn't classified as a national championship at time, but Ray Zarnick had hats made up, and the logo was a softball with a pair of knuckles on it. So here's Anthony Sanchez. Goes the other way. Robbie Bosco can't get there, and it just fouled down that line. So 6-3 ball game here. 45's put two on the board. That third run at third base, you know they'd love to pick that up as that double play is taking a little steam out of the inning, but we did see the 45 score a pair with 2 outs and nobody on, so they're more than capable of continuing the inning. That's why you got to be almost perfect when you play some of these big major teams because they'll take advantage of every little break you give them. And Anthony tried to go, and that's caught by Bosco. It almost looked like mid-swing. He kind of changed what he was doing there. Because all of a sudden he dropped the barrel and he tried to inside out it. So I don't know if he walked himself out of the swing or not. But so it turns out to be a 2-run inning, double play, huge there. And we head to the top of the 5th now, 6-3 45's. But there's a couple of guys with good knuckleballs. Jeff Hernandez always had a great knuckleball. Moji, Mike Marasovic, great knuckleball. We got a lot of guys that try to throw knuckleball. But a lot of those, a lot of pitchers that throw it can't get the ball over the plate consistently. Guys like Moji, Gibbs, Eggs, John Ryan, they can throw that knuckleball and throw it for strikes. McTeague and Nate Mercado can't make the play. Nate ranged far to his left. Unfortunately for Nate, right when he bent down, he was actually at the lip of the grass, and I think that might have clipped the lip and taken a little funny hop on him. So leadoff man on. Here's Ian Langston. Last time up, it looked like Ian wanted to maybe cut, and he tries to flare one. And Danny Villarreal, just a super infielder, can play anywhere. We saw him in our live stream last week. He was playing first base. Now he's at second. We know he can play short, center, short, and third. And the first time I saw him, he was playing center field out at Harrison Park on a B team. And John Ryan, this might be 2, and it is. So John Ryan rolls into a double play. We'll head to the bottom of the 5th, 6-3. And that's what the 45's will do to you. They'll hit, but they'll also play stellar defense. And it was on display there with Villarreal reading the cut by Langston and stealing a hit, and then they turned the double play. And it looks like Jeremy Jerger is coming in to play second base. So I assume they dropped him into Justin Bringle's spot. And Jeremy is, he's the epitome of what I talk about. You see, he's a slightly built dude, but he's got terrific hands. And he's played some shortstop, left side of the infield, and he's got a nice arm, and he's got good range, and he's, you know, not the biggest kid, but 16-inch will find a place for you. So if you've got a particular skill, good defensively, good hitter, you know, if you can run, you know, this game has a place for you. Because we got guys that look like gym gods, and we got guys that look like 40-year-old dads, but they have skills. So here's P.J. Raines to lead off. Then it'll be Nate Mercado and Joe Yaris. Ray Patton chiming in. And there's a high pop-up, and that's caught. Ray, I'm glad you dropped the comment. It gives me a chance to say he played on Mudville. Ray was our starting center fielder in '02 when we won the Class A National Championship. Don't tell me you're 40, Joe. So here's Nate Mercado. He does have a solo homer in this game. And then he flipped. And there's a ground ball off the third baseman. And I got to tell you something. If I'm John Ryan there, I got to breathe a sigh of relief. First baseman Eddie was telling the third baseman to hold it, and he threw it, and that ball was about 4 inches wide of JR's head, maybe 4 inches above his cap line. That's what you call squeezing it into a tight window. So here's Joe Yaris. So 1 out, 1 on. 45's lead by 3. Hunting for another run here or two. Called that pitch a little flat. And so John Ryan just wants to know. The ball just cleared the back of the strike zone. Oh, I see. He's saying he had called it illegal. He said John had more than 2 fakes because he kind of went behind the back like he was going to pick it off. And then he pumped twice between his legs before he threw it home. And Yaris, a little ground ball. Langston beats him to the bag, double play. So Ian Langston, it's the second nifty play he's made for a double play near the bag in this game. And both teams have hit into double plays, which have basically killed rallies. Nathaniel, did you take off? I know you were here earlier. So the shooters are hanging right in here. And Robbie Bosco and then the top. And they did defeat High Y earlier. There's a ground ball to third. And Mastari, tell you, he's got good hands and he's got an absolute hose. He made a play during the week when we had him against Meatball where he looked just like his dad, Frank. He caught a ground ball that was hit right over the bag, never even straightened up, and just threw a clothesline to first. So top of the order here, Bringo, and he slashes. Sanchez can't get it. It rolls past him. It'll be a stand-up double as he lashed it toward the gap. Good job by Chuck to get behind him to make sure that that didn't turn into something more than the double. So 1 out runner brings up Stanek. He walked and scored a couple of innings ago. And Keenan Connolly on deck. Spencer Stanek can find his way on base here. So that should be it for Robbie Bosco, because it looks like Jeremy and Spencer thought he had his second walk of the game. And there he hits a ground ball to Yaris, pitch and catch. Runner goes to third. And here comes Keenan Connolly with Eddie Valunas on deck. Now Keenan's a dangerous hitter, but you're up 3. And he lines it right to Mercado to end the inning. So they get the double. They can't do anything with it. And we head to the bottom of the 6-3. So if you're the 45's, you'd like to get a little insurance here and make the 7th inning a little less stressful. Shooters will have 4, 5, and 6 coming up. Eddie, Elliot, and Pat. So if you're a shooter fan, that's where you're going to be at in the top of the... It's because the brick broke up.
Come on, Chris.
Yeah. Said we're getting some pieces on this squad. So I like what Ray has done with this team. Chris Lentine leading off, and I see they got Jake over there who's not playing. He must be hurt. And Ian Langston and Chris Lentine didn't run. So Ian covered a lot of ground. I think Jeremy would have made the play. And then Ian expressed his displeasure at himself. Meanwhile, Chris wasn't running. And had Ian stayed with it a little quicker, he'd easily have had Chris at first. And these are the kind of little things that you don't want to have happen when you're playing a really good team. And there's a line drive. Oh, my. Line drive to third. Pringle couldn't handle it. The ball popped right to Keenan. And Chris Lentine knew he was toast because Keenan can throw it across the infield with the best of them. So another double play. We've seen quite a few in this game. Brings up Mastari. Long home run his last time up.
Come on, kid. Strike here. Let's go.
And I think Jeff's going to be a good one. Very polite kid. And you can just see the way he approaches the game that he wants to be as good as he can be.
Come on, Chuck. Come on, kid. You don't want that.
No, you're right, Pops. It was against Moneyline. I got Meatball and Moneyline on my mind after last night.
Hey, 2 outs, kid.
And that was a tough loss for Meatball last night. Game we streamed. And Adam Haas, sky high, and John Ryan makes the catch. That was a little bit of an adventure, but John Ryan stuck with it. Do or die, top of the 7th for the Shooters as we're getting toward the end of the night here. It's 8-2 on the other diamond. Hex and Demons. I'm not sure who the home team is. So we're going to be back tomorrow. We might have a couple of live look-ins, maybe a couple of interviews during the day. And we'll start live streaming around 4:30. So that's kind of the loose schedule. And there's a little pop-up right to Mercado out number 1. So Hex is in the field and they just changed, or is batting, and they just changed the scoreboard. So Hex winning 9-2 over there. And here's Elliott. And that ball's on the plate. And the 45's are a little ground ball, and they can't make that play. And they had Joe Yaris way over on the right side of the infield. And Nate ran a long way. And there's a big hole between third and short. And there's a scalder. Adam tells his father-in-law, Izzy, that he was going to go. And again, this runner at second means nothing. You're up 3. You want the out there. And that's going to bring up Mike G. and Grand, the third baseman. Shooters down to their last out. They need one more base runner to be dangerous. And he goes big into right field, but Raines puts it away. 45's very workmanlike effort. Turned a couple of double plays. And they win the game 6-3. So that's going to be a wrap-up. We'll make sure we get everything updated on the tournament bracket later today. And we'll be back again tomorrow. bringing you the coverage of the Westchester TOC, the very first Chicago Summer Series event. So a little bit of a historic tournament, and we hope you've enjoyed the coverage, as we've already showed you. As Keenan Connolly, always a gentleman, thanking us for doing their games. And the 45's, it wasn't a huge offensive output, but they got big hits when they needed it. So on behalf of SSA Broadcast, Gold Rush Gaming, and of course Sweet Buzz, who's one of our anchor sponsors, we want to thank you for tuning in. Be safe wherever you're at, and tune in tomorrow for more fun and games live